Hey guys, welcome back. So today's video is a little bit different than my usual video. This was actually requested by an Instagram friend of mine by the name of Punk Ass Emily. She asked that I talk about some of my favorite horror movies. So no doubt this video may attract attention of fellow horror fans. So I just kind of wanted to throw out there to anyone who's watching that's a horror fan, is that your idea of what's scary and my idea of what's scary might be totally different. I may talk about certain movies that you may not categorized as horror, but I do. So I just kind of wanted to throw that out there to let you guys know that you might see some things in here that you're like scratching your head at, like, what? That's not a horror movie. But all right, anyway, having said that, I'm just going to go right ahead and jump into it. So first and foremost, I need to talk about my all-time favorite director, writer, producer, whatever the heck he has done, George Romero. He is hands down my favorite, and I have a very hard time picking a favorite of anything, but I can say with the utmost certainty that he is hands down my favorite. I have seen all of his movies, and I own most of them, namely the Dead movies. When I was 5 years old, my parents took my sister and my sister was 3 at the time, to the drive-in to see Dawn of the Dead. Now, that's not the first horror movie I've ever seen, but that was my first drive-in experience, was Dawn of the Dead. Needless to say, that night I went home and I did not sleep a wink whatsoever, but that, I think, just really ignited my love of horror. So, some of the movies that I have here, and Dawn of the Dead, I don't have a favorite movie. I could never pick just one, but if I had to pick a top 10, Dawn of the Dead would definitely be in there. I have this box set. In here's the extended version, the theatrical version, the European version, and then there's a documentary in here. I love the documentary because it has old footage, and then a newer documentary that they did, I don't know how long ago, but yeah, I'm not quite sure when they did the newer documentary. But what's really cool is that when a few years ago we went to Gettysburg, we actually stopped at the Monroeville Mall, and that's where the mall scenes were shot, and it was just so awesome to just be able to walk around there. I took pictures like in front of the JCPenney. I found the hallway where they filmed. Like, it was amazing. It was almost like my Graceland. It just was an awesome experience. But like I said, I do have quite a few movies. These aren't all of them because I have quite a pile on the floor and I didn't want it to get out of control. But Day of the Dead. And speaking of Day of the Dead, I was fortunate enough to meet Laurie Cardill, and I'll actually show you a picture here. I went to a Horror Hound convention about 4 years ago or so, and I met a lot of people, and Laurie was one of them, and she was just the absolute sweetest person. We started talking about my situation. At the time, I was still going through chemo because I had leukemia, and so we were talking about that, and she was just the sweetest person. She actually gave me, I wish I could find them. I know I have them packed away, but she gave me an 8x10 of herself, and she signed it. She gave me a copy of her book. And had I been on Facebook at the time, I would have looked her up because she told me to find her and friend her because she really wanted to know, like, what ended up happening with me, you know, or my situation. But very, very sweet lady. So I've seen that movie a million times. Everybody hated this movie, the Diary of the Dead, but I have that. Land of the Dead, of course, Night of the Living Dead. Tom Savini remade Night of the Living Dead, but he stayed pretty true to the original. I love that he made Barbara a total badass. Like, I was just so happy about that. Seen this movie a million times. And then I have this Dead Time Stories that George Romero, I don't know if he wrote these, but he narrated, I believe. So these are just some of my George Romero movies. Like I said, I do have more, but again, I have quite the pile here, so I wanted to keep it minimal. 70s horror has to be my most favorite decade as far as horror movies go. I have quite the collection of 70s horror into the early 80s. Lucio Fulci is another favorite of mine. I have Zombie here. A lot of these would be categorized as B movies. I love B movies. I mean, obviously, you know, that's just kind of my thing. So I do have quite the collection of like 70s B movies. I have Suspiria. Suspiria is awesome. City of the Living Dead. There's also another one called, oh my gosh, I can't remember. It's like right on the tip of my tongue. But there is the same movie, it's titled differently. This movie, for its time, had one of the most disgusting scenes in it ever. I'm not going to give it away, just in case any of you watching haven't seen it and you want to. but I still have a hard time watching this scene in the movie. It just is probably one of the grossest that I have come across. But really like Lucio Fulci. I also like Dario Argento as well. Zombie is a classic, and Suspiria for sure. All of these are actually, in my opinion. But again, it's a very acquired taste when it comes to those types of movies because they are B movies. Something else that scares me are movies that have religious undertones to them. When I was growing up, my dad would not let us watch The Exorcist in the house because of the religious undertones. So of course, needless to say, as soon as I moved out of the house, one of the first movies that I ever bought was The Exorcist, on VHS by the way, which I don't have anymore. Years later, they re-released The Exorcist with some extended scenes, and it was awesome. I went to a midnight showing at the theater and saw it and just absolutely loved it, so I had to make sure that I got that one. So I have The Exorcist. The Exorcist Part 3 is amazing. George C. Scott, I love him. He did an amazing job in this movie. This movie scares the crap out of me still to this day, but I love watching it. Something that a lot of people find interesting is that I will come in my room, put on The Exorcist, shut all the lights off, and fall asleep to it. People don't understand how I can do that, but I do it all the time. A newer movie, The Exorcism of Emily Rose, gave me the creeps. I get like the chills thinking about it. But anything that has a religious undertone to it that is categorized as horror, I love it, but it also scares the crap out of me. Short stories that are put into a movie are among my favorites. For instance, Tales from the Crypt, I have the first 7 seasons on DVD. I love short stories that are put into one movie. And so I have the 7 of those. I also have the comic books too, the Tales from the Crypt comic books. I have the first season of Tales from the Dark Side. Love this. I also have for all 3 Creep shows. This one is my favorite, hands down. Of course, George Romero wrote one of the short stories. And then this one I absolutely adore. This is from the 70s. The Tales from the Crypt was made in 72. The Vault of Horror was in 73. Joan Collins is in one of the little short stories in here. Peter Cushing. This is one of my all-time favorites. I watch this one all the time. Again, I just love the short stories. The Amityville movies. Holy cow. Amityville, the first one. Definitely one of my favorites. Again, this would be in my top 10. I actually like all the Amityville movies. The Amityville Possession, that one was my least favorite. It's in this set here. That one's definitely my least favorite. What I really like about these box sets too is that not all, but some come with documentaries. So this one has from the History Channel. It has like little short documentaries in here of the people who actually did the investigating. Ed and Lorraine Warren, like there's some really good information in that documentary about the movie and the events that led to the making of Amityville Horror, and then also what happened with the DeFeo family. Woo! Speaking of religious undertones, the Omen. Love the Omen. Again, it just has that 70s feel to it. I believe the first Omen movie was written, or it was released, let's see here. 1976 was the first Omen movie. My favorite by far is the second Omen movie where Damien's a little bit older. That one's my favorite. This one came out in 1978. I just love the 70s feel of horror movies. The remake of The Omen, it was okay. I am not partial to remakes whatsoever, but it's not to say that there aren't several remakes in my pile here that I absolutely adore. This one wasn't horrible, you know, but again, I do prefer the original. Oh, and speaking of George C. Scott, The Changeling, great movie. This one came out in, I'm not sure what year this came out. There isn't a year on the back. If I had to guess, I would say probably late 70s, maybe very early 80s, like maybe 1980. This is awesome. It's a ghost story. I love ghost stories. Like I said, George C. Scott, one of my favorite actors as well. He's in this movie. If you like ghost stories and you kind of like that 70s vibe, definitely check out The Changeling. All right, again, another favorite writer, director, producer, you know, don't quote me on any of this stuff because I don't know that much about these people. I just know that I like them and they're my favorite. I mean, obviously, I think that when people think of John Carpenter, they think of the Halloween movies. The first two, my favorites. I have all the Halloween movies. Part 3 wasn't bad, but it had absolutely nothing to do with Michael Myers. But it was still a good movie. The one thing I like about John Carpenter is that he used a lot of the same actors in his movies, which I kind of like that. For any of you that watch are familiar with the movies like Best in Show, For Your Consideration, A Mighty Wind, that group of people, that little group is in almost every single one of those movies. And that's kind of what I like about John Carpenter. I have a lot of his movies. Escape from LA, Escape from New York, some of my favorites. Assault on Precinct 13. Again, he uses a lot of the same actors and every once in a while throws somebody new in there. But John Carpenter is definitely a favorite of mine. The Thing, he remade The Thing. I actually prefer this one to the original. I have seen the original. I've seen it quite a few times, but I just prefer John Carpenter's version. The Fog. Love this movie. It reminds me of my childhood watching Big Chuck and Little John with my dad. Most of you won't know what that means, but it was a show that was exclusive to Cleveland. But anyway, they used to show movies like this all the time. Matter of fact, let me show you something. I love Adrienne Barbeau, and I was probably the most starstruck when I got to meet her. Just a really nice lady, and I realized that when you go to these events, you know, they're being paid, they have to smile and all that stuff, but I just got a very genuine feeling from her that day. It might have been the fact that, again, I looked sick. I had makeup on, but I was bald. You could tell even though I had a hat on. So I don't know if people were treating me differently because they knew something wasn't right, but I'm going to take it, you know. So I had my picture taken with Adrienne, and just the most lovely person, honestly. And then with Norm there from The Walking Dead. Really, really, I mean, very quickly, I'll tell you the story behind that. So my son and I got to the convention and we walked up and we were getting ready to walk in, and I happened to look over and I saw him standing outside smoking, and I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, look who that is. And I don't want to bug him, but at the same time, I'm like missing out on an opportunity here, you know? So I called my friend Sarah. Sarah was on her way. And I said, you're not going to believe who's outside. She goes, Felicia, you need to go up to him right now. She's like, if you don't, you're going to regret it the rest of your life. So I was like, all right. So I just sucked it up. I walked up to him, and he was with some guy. I don't even know who he was. He was kind of a douchebag. But I walked up, and I was like, I don't mean to bother you. I would love it if you would take a picture with me. And his friend was like, no, we're just out here smoking. You know, you can meet us on the inside. And I looked at Norm and I was like, I love your show, you know, and so I was like, you know what, it's fine, no big deal, I'll just wait till I go inside. And I turned around to walk away, and he come up behind me and put his arm around me, and he was like, yeah, we can totally do this. He was like, where do you want to do this? Do you want to take the picture out here? And I was just so like, you know, I kind of stood there and I was like, no, we could do it right here. So he was really decent. He took a picture with me. Again, I only think that he did that because you could tell something wasn't right. But I found out about 10 minutes later that the massive line that was all the way to the door was the line to see him. So I felt very lucky. You know, of course I was bugging him, you know, but he was nice enough to take a picture with me. And what was cool was when we were inside, he was standing there like signing autographs and taking pictures with people, and I looked over at him and I kind of waved and he waved it back at me. It was really cool. So little side story there. But getting back to John Carpenter, I have this little series of movies here. The Thing, Prince of Darkness, They Live, Village of the Damned. Prince of Darkness, again, another movie with some religious undertones. I really like that movie a lot. They Live is not scary at all, but the idea behind it is scary if you've never seen it and you know, you're curious. I'm not going to give anything away. You should go see or go rent or download or buy whatever They Live from John Carpenter. It's a really good movie. Of course, The Shining. Very disturbing. I'm not into disturbing movies. Like I feel like a lot of new movies nowadays, they're just more disturbing than anything, and I'm not into that. I don't like movies where it's possible for things to really happen, you know? I mean, The Fog. That's never going to happen. It's a fog that has ghosts in it. That's never going to happen. The Thing, same thing, never going to happen. They Live, Prince of Darkness. You know, most of these movies that I have shown you are things that will never ever happen, and those are the types of scary movies that I like. But movies where something could actually happen, as in like murder or torture, like I'm not partial to those types of movies. I will watch them, but I'm not partial. I'm also not partial to blood and guts. I don't need to see somebody's intestines getting ripped out in order to enjoy a movie. As a matter of fact, I kind of shy away from that. Now, some of these movies do have those disgusting aspects to them, but they also have other things about them that I like. So I'm kind of willing to put up with it or overlook it for the sake of the movie. But The Shining, awesome. There have been like so many other movies where lines have been taken from this movie or suggestions from this movie. So if you haven't seen this, you owe it to yourself to see The Shining. This is a movie that some of you might not find scary, but I did find it just a little bit scary considering when the very first time I saw it, I was younger. Aliens. Sigourney Weaver was my idol when I was a kid. I wanted to be a badass just like her. I loved Aliens. I know every word to this movie. I could put this movie in the DVD player, hit play, and go along with the entire movie. Now, I will say this. What freaked me out even more about this movie was when they came out with this set here. So the original is in here, and then also the extended version is in here. The extended version probably made it that much more creepy for me, especially, I don't know, should I go into it? I'm going to. Especially the added scene where they have the automatic machine guns in the hallways, and you hear them going off, and they're just like going to town killing these aliens in the hall, and just sort of like that unknown of not being able to see what happened. It totally freaked me out, but I loved it. So this movie right here, of every movie that I've shown you, well, apart from Dawn of the Dead, I know every word in this movie, and if you ever watch this movie with me, you're going to be completely annoyed because I cannot help myself when I watch it. Just some quick mentions here. My Bloody Valentine, love that movie, seen it 400,000 times. Death Ship, another one. I had to buy this online from Hong Kong. I can't read anything on the back, as you can see, but I remember this movie from when I was a kid. It took me years to track this movie down. The quality of the movie sucks, but I don't care. I still love it. Satanic Rites of Dracula, yeah. I like anything with Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing. I mean, those guys, they just look scary, right? So again, this is a 70s movie. I'm not quite sure when this came out. Love this movie. I have tons of movies like this from the 70s. Alfred Hitchcock. My friend Beth sent this set to me. I have not opened it yet, but my two favorite Alfred Hitchcock movies, hands down, are The Birds and Psycho. And then Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's disturbing. It's scary, but it's like disturbing. And again, disturbing movies freak me out. This could really happen. There could be some psycho family out there that just eats people, like kills people and eats them. If you haven't seen this, you need to watch it. But again, it is disturbing. This is another movie that I have seen 4 million times. Now, these are the two movies that most of you would not categorize as horror, but they do kind of freak me out a little bit, scared me just a tad. The Happening and Signs from M. Night Shyamalan. Can't say that guy's last name, so that's what I call him. I love the idea behind his movies. Absolutely love the idea behind his movies. I think he's brilliant. The Happening, take care of the earth, you know? Because come on, right? And Signs, anything with aliens, I'm just like, yeah, give me more. But I'm one of those kind of people, I believe in aliens. I believe in ghosts. I don't know about Bigfoot, but, you know, I suppose it's possible. But anyway, I don't want to get off track with that. But I do believe in aliens. And so this movie freaked me out to no end. It was a good movie. You probably didn't like it, but I did. And The Happening, you know what else I like too? Lady in the Water. Lady in the Water was a good movie. It didn't scare me at all. Like, that's not a scary movie. But that was a brilliant movie. Evil Dead, duh, of course. You guys know about the boomstick, right? Love these movies. Have seen them both a million times. Also, Army of Darkness. I am a big Bruce Campbell fan. He has done the stupidest movies in the world. Bubba Hotep. What was the other one? Man with Screaming Brain. I own that. Like, I have My Name is Bruce. Love Bruce Campbell. The Friday the 13th movies, of course. I feel like most horror fans love this series here and the Halloween series. Like, they're just campy and so B-movie-ish, you know. I love them. This movie made me afraid to go in the water. Piranha. This is another 70s movie, or is this 80s? 78, close enough. This movie made me afraid of the water. I've seen Jaws when I was a kid, of course, you know, that scared me. But I lived in Ohio, there was no ocean, it was just a lake. You know, but this movie made me afraid of the water. This movie scared me. Have you ever seen this movie, The Car? Sarah, if you're watching this, I know you're laughing. I got this movie around Christmas time years and years ago, and I remember Sarah came over and I had it on and I played it all day long. She thought it was kind of funny. Another movie from my childhood that took me years and years and years to track down. This is an awesome movie. It's about a car that is possessed by the devil. I mean, what's not to like? Some honorable mentions here. Insidious, scary. The Conjuring, scary. I can't show you that because it's on Amazon on my TV. There's a whole generation of people who don't like clowns, courtesy of Poltergeist. This was a good movie. I could do without the other two, but the first one is definitely a classic. Actually, speaking of clowns, so I feel like for my generation, a lot of people are afraid of clowns because Poltergeist, and then the 80s generation maybe is afraid, is it 80s? Yeah. Would be afraid of clowns because of that movie It, which by the way I've never seen. I've seen tidbits of it. The reason that I never watched it, I am not partial to Stephen King movies. Look, his movies are good, right? But you have to admit, 9 times out of 10, the ending sucks. His books, I read The Shining, the book creeped me out all the way to the end, and then I was just like, what? So, yeah, I love Stephen King. He's brilliant. He's the master of horror, but the movies, they always come up short, in my opinion, at the end. Prom Night, awesome. 70s movie. Jamie Lee Curtis. This movie creeped me out. Dead Silence. I have this thing about, like, puppets and dolls, and this movie was all about puppets that are possessed. I liked the movie, but I didn't like, you know, the feeling that it gave me about these creepy dolls. All right, so that's all I'm going to show you guys for today. I did want to show you guys a couple other things. This is how much I love George Romero. I had this specially made from an Etsy shop. Love that. And then there was another Horror Hound convention that I wasn't able to make it to. I think I was sick. And but Sarah went, and she was nice enough to get for me this poster here with Tom Savini's signature, and he actually spelled my name correctly. Sarah said he was kind of crabby. I told her too. I was like, well, the cast from The Walking Dead was at that convention, if I remember correctly, and so most people were going just for that. So a lot of other maybe actors or special effects artists, whoever, they may have not been as popular, but I would have been all over that. This guy, he would have hated me. I probably walked up to him like, because I love Tom Savini. I love Tom Savini. He's part of the reason why there was a time when I wanted to sort of like dabble in special effects makeup. It's another reason why I really like doing zombie makeup. Like when my kids would want to dress up for Halloween, the first thing I would say was like, all right, who wants to be a zombie, you know? I love Tom Savini. He's been in quite a few movies, and I think that he just, for the time, the 70s when Dawn of the Dead was made, I think he did an amazing job with the makeup and what he had to work with. So, but anyway, that is it. Emily, I hope you liked the video. You're going to have to let me know. If you guys have any questions or you want to see any other types of videos that are similar to this, or you want me to go into any more detail about anything, please don't hesitate to ask. So that's it, you guys. I'm going to go. So thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and I will see you all again very soon. Bye.